Bonsoir, bienvenue au Centre culturel suisse. Je m'appelle Claire Hoffmann, je suis responsable des arts visuels, de l'architecture et du graphisme ici. Et je me réjouis beaucoup d'accueillir ce soir le collectif Architecture for Refugees, basé à Zurich, qui présente leur travail collectif. On a une délégation assez importante de 7 personnes, mais en fait, le collectif consiste en plus ou moins 50 personnes. On vient d'avoir la discussion. Même les personnes présentes ici n'étaient pas tout à fait sûres combien de membres actifs font partie de Architecture for Refugees. Donc c'est un collectif qui œuvre pour l'inclusion des personnes réfugiées à l'intérieur des villes. Donc il ne s'agit pas seulement du logement, mais à réfléchir aussi qu'est-ce qui peut être une structure accueillante, une structure de rencontre. Et le collectif est actif dans des festivals, dans des workshops, dans des lieux, dans des tiers-lieux en fait. Et donc, je me réjouis beaucoup de découvrir avec vous quelle forme prennent ces projets, quel processus collectifs, justement, font naître tous ces projets. Quel est le dialogue qui est engendré par ça avec la population, avec les réfugiés. Et donc, merci beaucoup d'être là. Et merci à vous aussi d'être là. La présentation aura lieu en anglais. Et ensuite, il y aura une discussion. Vous pourrez poser des questions. Et bien entendu, vous pouvez les poser en français, si vous préférez. Merci beaucoup. Et je vais juste nommer les personnes qui sont là ce soir. Donc, Architecture for Refugees est présenté aujourd'hui par Matthias Alder, Margherita Chinaglia, Anne Fabricius, Ivo Grossot, Tobias Häusermann, Susanne Sauter et Nadine Schröter. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. So, hello everyone. It's really great to be here for us. First of all, I have to say this is our first trip, our first foreign trip as Architecture for Refugees. And after the first big joy we had about this invitation, we also realized that the invite might, put another finger to the wound. It's a wound in our community we have to face very often, because as you hardly can ignore, there are 7 people from a Central European country, and as we sit here together, we are super exclusive and not inclusive at all. And we also discussed this again on the way to here. We had a long discussion in the train again. It's hard to change for us, but we are still super happy that we have the chance to present ourselves and tell you what we're gonna do. It's for a lot of our members, it's not even possible to leave their local area due to their residential permission. And if they have a chance, a little chance, it takes like a long marathon through migration authorities. And there were situations where other organizations give it a try and also failed. So, yeah, as Claire said, we are more or less between 50 and 100 people, how you want to define it. And this is really just a little selection. And before we start, I also really want to motivate everyone that afterwards we would be super happy to talk with you personally, because this frontal presentation doesn't really fit to our mentality, nor are we super used to it. So we really want to talk to people, so please feel free. Also, we are happy about critical statements and discussions. So, this is another picture from in our community at an event, and but now we want to start with more content. Yeah, what our observations in our home area? If you arrive as a refugee in Zurich or in the city or in the canton of Zurich, first of all, it's high likely you're gonna change the location every few months. This is also due to the migration policy. And each time you arrive in a new neighborhood, first of all, you realize that you hardly have any neighbors. You're living at the edge of the city, even outside the city, or close to some village you don't have any relation to. We don't call this exclusion, but segregation. So about this expression, also Nadine on my left gonna explain a bit more later on. And the building you live in might look quite temporary or cheap or both. This is also often by purpose not to provoke too much jealousy in the society or even anger. Yeah, the building could, for example, look like this. This is the Federal Asylum Center in Zurich. It's for a lot of newcomers, it's the first address. And now this is an example which is really placed in the ground of the city, but still it's not really easily accessible. And it's not integrated into the city life. This building is at the outskirts of Zurich in a quite quickly growing commercial area, what means during working hours and during the week there is quite a frequency, but apart from this, this area can be super deserted. And there is also a lack of infrastructure for residential areas. The people staying there for a while, they live together in such a six bedroom, and they prepare their asylum application and hand it in, and mostly what they can do there is waiting for the result. There are hardly any activities offered. There are some non-profit organizations, also we've been involved there, who try to have some cinema evening, cooking events, but at that stage, as a refugee, you are in this waiting position and not even allowed to take part in language courses. What's another issue in Zurich, obviously, is money. It's one of the most expensive cities in the world, and these asylum seekers get around 6 Swiss francs per day, and the one-way ticket to the city center costs 440. So, but it's a one-way ticket. So, yeah, this was a bit my part, the more gloomy part of the introduction, and but I just want to mention this is very happy to also to explain this motivation of us, which was our the initial idea of this association, why I want to take action. And now I hand over to Nadine, hope for a happier scene.
Oh, that was too fast. Thank you, Susanne. Even a little bit further out of the center is the Fogo. It's a residential accommodation for refugees, so that's kind of the next or 2 more steps, people living there. It was built by the architects Hoffmann Fontana and currently is considered as a flagship project. That is because it's a mixed use. We have refugees here, but we also have students. There are studios, ateliers, so behind normal working hours, there is life. There's a coffee, there's playground for children. Our association itself has a shared working space there, so we come together there for our Stammtisch, that's the monthly meeting, and other work meetings. Even though the concept is going in the right direction, the atmosphere at Fogo is quite good. We don't really get in touch with the people living there. It's like a brief greeting, but it's not like really interaction. And in addition, the location is not easy to reach for everyone. Like you can reach by train, and we have bicycles, we can go there. But for example, on a Friday evening, we are looking for a more vibrant place, more central to meet for our discussions. And the refugees, like she mentioned already, don't have that much money to go wherever they want. and have to come back early. These are just observations, and complaining is not our motivation. We don't consider ourselves as the excuser of the Swiss migration policy. Our motivation is more to open the city for everyone. We are looking for that the residents of such buildings find, at least during the day, a place where they have joy, have friendships, and kind of the right to be wherever they want. So for us, architecture is a human right. As you already noticed, we define architecture not only in terms of building, but in the space between, in the public space in the city. We see our base, like already said, in the Fogo, but the whole city is our playing field. It's our space of action. On this map, the one, okay, you also see it, you see projects we have implemented during the last 3 years. They vary in size and duration, but they all have in common that we were looking for welcoming, accessible urban space to enable respectful coexistence, an inclusive urban space, so to say. Well, but how to define inclusive or inclusion? There are plenty of answers, and some of them will be discussed later. We brought this graphic. I don't think that I have to explain it. It already shows the differences between the concepts. But like we said, you're all invited to discuss these things after the lecture directly. For us, that's our kind of version, inclusion as a concept of co-living in the city. We want to make inclusion reality. We want an open city. Therefore, we see our mission in creating communal space to exchange ideas and meet each other. Besides the interaction, we also pursue the goal of communicating inclusion or the topic of inclusion in our society and in the architecture scene. So today we are here in Paris to do so. For shaping the inclusive city, we invest a lot of energy that comes from our community, which is quite cooperative and spontaneous, like you can see here. There we have also a lot of fun, even discussing these strong and heavy themes. So the community is the heart of our group of Architecture of Refugees. And our strongest tool are the projects. They're here on the left sides. We define them in hands-on projects, mediation projects, and research. And the following speakers will give you a closer look to that. So Tis will continue with the hands-on projects.
Hello, my name is Matthias, and I will present 2 of our hands-on projects. As you already have heard, these hands-on activities are such as building projects, workshops and festivals and so on are an important tool for us to reach our goal of an inclusive society and an open city. During these building sessions, you get in touch with other people outside of your bubble. You speak with people around of the society. So the first project I want to present you is the project Transfere. You see it in the backwards. In 2019, we took the chance to participate with this project at the famous theater festival in Zurich. Our float was part of the little sub-festival at the island in this little island, and the name is Safa. This Safa island was an open space of freedom and no consumption. And during 3 weeks, this island was a place to meet friends and enjoy some activities without without needing to buy a ticket for this festival. From time to time, our Transfere floated from the island of Safa to the mainland of Zurich and backwards by transporting new guests to this nice island. So the form of this transfer visualized the life of refugees in Switzerland and their long and hard journey into security. The small blurred sides in the front and in the back were representing the life of refugees they left behind and their uncertain perspective for their future. I mean, most of the refugees, they had to leave everything at home, and society in Europe often doesn't really value their knowledge. The long open sides, this one here, where you see the people now, were representing the transformation of their old life into the new one here in Switzerland, full of new experience, friendships and opportunities. But also mixed with the long waiting period and uncertainness of their future. I mean, the building process of this transfer float was quite challenging. The length of the ship was around 9 meters and the height 5 meters. The weight of the float was above 1 ton, and there was no scaffolding on this island. So how do you build a structure like this on a floating foundation? We didn't know, but we just did it. And I think one of our technical recommendations, if you want to build a structure like this in the future, is this one. Don't do it yourself, but do it together. So here you see, in this movie, you see the building process we made on the island and on the lake also here. And we often build it in the night because a lot of our people are working through the day. So the next project I want to show you is this Café für alle. In last year, the autonomous school of Zurich was looking to reopen their popular café, which they had to close because of COVID-19, as we all know. So they asked us to design and organize this building of a big roof inside of their courtyard. The Autonomous School of Zurich is a self-organized, collective and independent school in the center of Zurich. Everyone can be a teacher or a student, and there are no school fees. There are also several language lessons where, for example, refugees participating. So in June of last year, we started building this first part of the project by assembling this pavilion here, and the name is Mother Hexagon. We prefabricated this 1 year before, so in 2019, just before the transfer, for another festival, and so we had just to fix it together. With the power and the creativity of a lot of students from the school, we built then the main structure. Here you see in the middle this 3 main structure pieces, and all the pieces of the wood were transformed from the transfer project. And this pavilion, we built it from the pavilion to the school building in between. At the end of this building period, we were happy that we have created a nice community space in this courtyard. This project opened this space for other people to meet students from the school and others from the neighborhood. So this is also a little opening party we made then. So, but I will finish with a very small but very nice and effective project with the name, If You Have Enough, Build a Longer Table and Not a Higher Wall. And we from Architects for Refugees are also building a lot of these small-scale projects. They are very effective to show and to live our vision of an open and inclusive city. And this weekend, so this Saturday, exactly this table will stay at the Human Rights Film Festival in Zurich, and we hopefully invite a lot of people to participate and co-create the inclusivity of tomorrow. Now I give the word to Ivo, who will speak about mediation.
So you're already taking the words, what I want to say. I show you some action we do in mediation, some projects. Since almost 5 years we do the city walks. We invite a refugee to tell us his arrival and his first days living in Zurich. And you cannot imagine, it's really hard. And I did really not know about what they go through. Also, some things like the police always control them, and it's really not so nice how they arrive in Zurich, and the first days are really tough for them if they don't have to go to somewhere. What we also do is to invite architects who built this asylum center, like we saw Susan showed the picture and talked about. They're the architects. We go from asylum center. There are many in Zurich, and also this federal asylum center. And they also say, for example, that they want to do something nicer, and doesn't cost more, but it's more nice. But they don't want this because it shouldn't be too nice for the refugees. So it's a kind of political problem. So these city walks are really interesting. Here you see a picture. We didn't want to show the faces. And this is from Miteinander Mittagessen. This is also in this federal asylum center. You cannot enter in this asylum center. There are securities, they control always the refugees when they go out and they come back, always controlling what they have, what they bring with, maybe. So it's really secure. And this is a room where the city Zurich has made possible. You see behind the little kitchen. And we meet in this room and we thought about what could we do. And then we thought, okay, cooking and eating brings people together. And that we want to do, to bring the refugees from the center together with the people who work in this area or who live there. So we invite always a group of refugees, and they really appreciate that they can cook, because in the asylum center they cannot cook. There is a canteen, and somebody cook for them, and they don't like the food because it's not what they know from her country. So they were really happy to cook the things they from their culture, no? How they grew up, and it was impressed, the happy faces, and we had to bring some big pots because we cooked for more than 200 people. And there is a little story. You see the little kitchen behind. So we had to bring some material, this ceramic for cooking, heating up. And then we put it beside the kitchen, and there was an electric problem. So we had to put the pots all about the room in every corner. And somebody from Afghanistan told me that he's responsible for cooking. He said, Ivo, I think a professional cook would leave now. It's not possible, what we're doing here. And I just told him, but I think it looks nice. So the pots were all over this room. So we always try to make it possible, even if there are some problems. So now this picture was taken from Open City Festival. We made this in 2020. This was 1 week. Here you see the corner with the presentation, because we invite different kinds of organization who are something in common because they have projects to open for everybody and for an open city. Because of this, that's what we want. We want inclusivity and open city. And so the organization could come to this festival and talk about their projects. That's why you see the screen there. And there was another corner. We made an interview marathon, where really many hours presentation also, but just with interview. And also, what we always do is cooking. So the refugees made a really good food festival. So you can eat very well and also meet each other. So the organization, they almost don't have time, no? They do their things, and they know each other, but it was a really good thing for them also to meet each other. So here we see a product. We were invited by the University of Art, Lucerne, and they want to know how we do our projects. So we called Take Action. And we arrived in a brand new building, really. I was stunning. Must cost a lot of money, but very nice. But we didn't want to stay in the building. We really want to go outside. So we made a walk with the students to see about the neighborhood, what's there, and really interesting neighborhoods, because it's changing a lot from industry to other things, and a lot of migrants, stores, really interesting. So we had a lot of ideas what we could do, some events with some action, but like the COVID also, you never know what the future brings. Finally, the students decide to make a book for cooking. I was a little bit disappointed. I think there are so many books for cooking, but okay. Of course, I had to agree and want to make something new. So we have some idea to share. Tobias said, why we don't share with neighbors? I have maybe an idea with cards. And then the students, one moment, they talk about the colors. There's a machine, the réseaux printer. You have to choose 2 colors, something like this. And they want the whole book, yeah, thank you. The whole book they want to do with these 2 colors or something. So I said, it's not about diversity, and we have these cards, it's not a book. And maybe to impress a little bit more. So it's written here. You can share with your neighbor. And then if somebody for a neighbor here. So then you can have 1 card, for example, and your neighbor has another card. And it's about the story. So there is it's about his life, something personal, and then he has a receipt for his favorite dish, what he likes to cook and to eat. And so now you can share it. When you know about this, and this is a neighbor from your street, so you can change it now. So that's like an open book. And this is interaction, also, we want to bring people together.
That's the recipe. That's the recipe.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. But the idea was like this: we make cards, and you can change also with your neighbor. So it's written here. You invite to change with your neighbor. But I'm happy to take it back because it's my only example.
Well, thanks a lot, Ivo. And we would like to present you now our current project, which is called Inclusion Makes Architecture. It's a collective research project. We developed this for the Architecture Matters call from Pro Helvetia last year. And I guess this is also a bit the reason why we are here today at the Centre culturel suisse. And so Architecture for Refugees is committed to inclusion in architecture and urban design. We state that it's important, that architecture is important when it's committed to the society as a whole. For us, it's inclusion is about diversity and participation. And with this project, we stated then, or our project mission was to search for relevant best practice projects in this year, to evaluate them and to make them accessible through a database. In the process, we had a lot of meetings and we discussed what is inclusion, what does it mean, inclusion? As you already mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, inclusion is a word which is quite used often today, or which is, but what does it really mean? And we defined like 6 characteristics what is inclusion in our eyes. Accessibility, equality, diversity, identity, interaction, and togetherness. And to describe all of these 6 characteristics, we added like 3 aspects to them which describe them more properly. So I would like to give you an example about the accessibility. So accessibility for us means that a situation, a place, or an event is open to different users and uses in terms of space and time. And then as an aspect which describes that more properly is affordability. That we state that, for example, high entrance fees lead to exclusion, especially of people with a migrant background, or also the freedom of consumption. So we did it for all of these 6 characteristics with the 3 aspects. That is more or less what you can see on this image. We did like a glossary of inclusion, which you cannot read here, but I guess you can see the like the overall image, what really inclusion means for us. And now we are shifting from kind of the methodology of the project to the tool. This is the spider diagram, where you can see these 6 characteristics with in total 18 aspects as an empty diagram, which we use as a tool to maybe not measure, but to visualize inclusion in different projects or places.
So now we talked about the different criteria that we try to figure out and the thing how we want to show it. But now is the big question, okay, how will we fill this spider? How we can fill it with the help of people that make different projects, and also with the help of the people that profit from the projects. So in those projects, we try to define our projects that are either done by people with refugee background, or people with refugee background are profiting from those projects. For this, we tried to figure out like having different kind of perspectives that we in the end have kind of an objective overview of this. And here you can see the first perspective, the internal perspective. So first of all, we try to contact those different projects or organizations, and we ask them if they want to fill out a questionnaire. This questionnaire looks like this. There are the different criteria explained, and they should rate themselves about inclusiveness and about the different criteria. That was step 1. Step 2 was then the external perspective 1. So we asked them if we could have an interview with them. So either with people that founded the organization or people that really into it and that organize programs. And for example, here you can see one of those interviews for which we used the platform of the Farbenblind Festival during this summer to meet there and to have the first talk. And second will be the external perspective 2, which means that we really go to the projects and talk to the people that profit from the projects and do an interview with them. Those are less like really straight interviews. It's more like having a little talk and trying to find out with the help of the criteria and their answers. Out of all these different perspectives, interview and questionnaire, they came out different spiders then. So afterwards, we tried to get together with someone else who hasn't been at the interview to discuss it a bit, and then trying to rate it using, again, those criterias. And as you can see in here, it's 3 different perspectives about one project, and of course, rated in different ways. So we now take this chance to create a lot of spiders and try to overlap them and to see what's coming out. And as you can see in here, some parts are a bit darker. As you can see there in the yellow part, the easiest. It's not so easy when you have it like in a digital version here. But you can see, okay, some parts are stronger and some parts are less strong. And then when you reflect on the different talks, you can find out there will be some outcomes like, okay, this and that could be changed, or they had this proposal, what they want to do. Additionally to this overlay, we also found out that the projects have different terms of, or different phases of inclusion according to how long the project exists. So we looked at different projects, and of course a project that just started is within this inclusion diagram way smaller than a project that has been there for several years. Yes. And as well, so according to that, we're now having this methodology cafe where we're trying to explain a bit more what we're exactly doing with this research to the people that are coming, to be a bit more transparent, and also to get a reflection from them to our process, that we can evaluate it a bit more. Because also for us, this is the first research. We're usually just doing like active things. Yeah, and that is why we want to work together with everyone and get the feedback and also the critique. And maybe to make this a bit more obvious for you, to demonstrate it a bit, we thought, okay, maybe we can evaluate a project of ourselves, the so-called Stammtisch, that you might maybe understand a bit better what we're doing with this kind of research and critique stuff. And for the Stammtisch, it's funny because actually Stammtisch is a super conservative word, and the first image that you have is like old German or Swiss people getting together, drinking their beer after work. But the Stammtisch we're using functions in another way, and we're gonna try to explain it to you with the help of the criteria from our inner perspective, because now we're kind of the association that tries to describe the project and rate it as well.
Yes, so our Stammtisch, it's not the traditional version, so it's our monthly meeting that we are having every first Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock at Fogo Areal, the place we already have mentioned in this presentation. And it's an open table in which we will we discuss the upcoming projects and the ideas that everyone can step in and be part of this process. And now we will go more deeply in with the criteria, with explaining Stammtisch and also trying to evaluate this moment, this Stammtisch. So, Anne, how do you think? What do you think about accessibility for this project? Do you think is accessible?
In terms of affordability, the project is very accessible as it's an open space and it's a non-consuming space, but we also try to offer every time a little picnic and beers. But according for the accessibility, the physical accessibility, for example, it's a bit less rated because we're not barrier-free. So how equal is the project in terms of collaboration, participation, and outcome?
Yeah, I will say that the equality in general is quite high because it's a good moment. It's a moment to have a good discussion, and the decision are. We are really doing the decision together. So, for example, I can also say my example, because I joined the first Stammtisch 2 months ago in September, and I just jumped in the table, in the meeting, and at the end I was really taking part as all the other people in all the decisions and in all the upcoming projects, and I'm here today, and I was really just popping in everything. Yeah, so we rated quite high for that. And then, what, sorry, what about diversity? How diverse is the project?
So, according to acceptance, the project is very high rated because any ideas are welcome, and we're happy to discuss everything here and everything at Stammtisch and also accept different opinions. Stammtisch is there really to discuss and to get like diverse ideas of things. But if you see, for example, the diverse usage is super low because we have a fixed agenda, the so-called Traktanden, that we have to go through and talk about like upcoming projects, make decisions and everything. And of course, Stammtisch is mainly about getting together and discussing. And we just found out, yeah, okay, not all of the different cultures are interested in discussions. And I think there, especially, it's kind of a Swiss-German thing that we want to discuss everything. For the next one, how much is the project conceived together?
So we rated quite high solidarity, the third one, the highest, because in terms of solidarity, we are really open in that moment for everyone and to accept and to listen to everyone's ideas. But the belonging, in terms of belonging, for example, we rate it quite low because maybe it's not the best moment in which we develop this aspect, this criteria, because we have noticed that many people are coming, but maybe just once, and then they are not joining again. Maybe because they are bored for all the conversation, and because we are not doing something really practical, maybe for other reasons, but we noticed that. So it's important also to distinguish the togetherness, for example, in these 3 different aspects. And what about interaction? How high do you rate this criteria?
So for the exchange, in terms of communication, it's quite high because we communicate there a lot and have like different ideas. Yes, but for example, in terms of co-design, like in term of the situation, it's a bit more that this is a really regulated happening, as we're meeting every time at Fogo Areal, and there's a shared space with another organization. So it's just quite functional. We're just going there to meet and to have a talk, and afterwards we put all the stuff back. There was never the moment that we hanged some posters or that we tried to add curtains or something. Yes, and so also in terms of interaction according to appropriation according to activities, the space itself left quite unpersonal, and that is why also there the rate is not that high. And for the last thing, Margarita, how strong is the identity of this project of Stammtisch?
Yeah, I think we think that the what is that? Personal. Yes, the personal identity is super high because all the people that are joining Stammtisch, they are really identifying themselves with the association, with the projects, and with the discussion. But it's also true that this moment is just a small image of the association, because as you can also understand from this presentation, we are doing a lot of stuff completely, I mean, a lot of projects, so it's just a small image of architecture for refugees. And also the public identity, is rated the lowest because of a lack of visibility, because we noticed that even a lot of time, even if we know where is the place, the Fogo Areal, the room in which we are meeting, a lot of places, a lot of times maybe we are not even finding ourselves the way or the easiest way to reach, because there is no signal to reach the place. So this is also something important. And so now that you have already, that we kind of did together the spider diagram, we filled in together and we rate the criteria. These are the outcomes that by our reflecting on the criteria, we found some aspects that we can improve or change of Stammtisch. So for example, the timing. We have fixed this meeting at 7 o'clock because a lot of people are working, but we also saw that we are not the most diverse group of people, because I mean, for us it's a good moment because it's after work, but maybe for other people, maybe with a refugees background, at 7 it's too late. So that could be maybe something to reflect on, or maybe to change. Or also in talking about diversity and diverse usage, maybe we could also not just talk and discuss during Stammtisch, but also doing some workshops, doing some buildings workshop, or interact more with the space. And also linked to that, also to have a more flexible agenda to also include more people. so these are some outcomes that we discovered. And, but as we also have explained before, this is just a step on our evaluation and our research project. But last week, so this is very fresh, we did also a workshop to continue this work also on Stammtisch. We did this workshop during the Open Future Festival. And we also collect some more material for the next step. But so here you can see a picture, but we still have to analyze and process more this data. So it's still an ongoing process. And now, what is going on in Switzerland?
Maybe now to finish this short presentation, we can take a look back to Switzerland. What will go on now in the future, and at the moment we're like trying to use the platform of the Open Futures Festival we just talked about to bring the community a bit more together and also to welcome new people. And this are we making with the stuff we can do the best, which is cooking and having food together, which is like building something, really doing something hands-on. And here you can see the pavilion that we now moved from Autonome Schule to the Stadthalle in Zurich to the Open Futures Festival and just build it up together. Yeah, and all these parts we just do with our mission of taking action and doing something together and being very open for discussion, for new people, and for changing something in the society with this. Thank you. And now we're super open and happy to have like a discussion maybe with you to answer your questions, and feel free to ask what you want. I guess in English and in French is possible, and we're trying to make our best to answer.
Your project, has it gone away from just this area? Have you been able to reach other cantons?
So we started with Zurich now, but the big goal is to have other cantons as well, like other regions. But now it took us quite a long time, like to figure out those criteria, to find out how can we get different perspectives and what's the easiest way to get in touch and to analyze it. But the big goal is also to have the different regions.
And I don't know if the question was only about the research project or also about other aspects. We were invited to the University of Montreal for making an expedition there. And it was also a combination of having expedition, shelter is not enough, where we explain how people live in the center. And then we had also a hand-on project there. We were rebuilding the shape of a room in one of these centers to show people the size. And then we also had this big table there. That's a thing we always like to replace there. So, and also Lucerne was a project at the university where we were invited, and happily to use that chance to talk with the students there and to do the project Ivo showed before. So we mainly in Zurich because we live there, so that's our action, the part we have, but we are happy to go somewhere else to talk about it because the problem is all over Switzerland, all over the world, I guess.
Yeah, when we are invited, we always coming, like we're coming to Paris. But there is so much to do already. Like we live in Zurich, and we always, you see, we do a lot of projects, and it's a process. We also, like this spider, it's a new thing, and it's a lot of work. So if we have the chance to go outside of Zurich, yes, but there is so much to do also in Zurich. That's our place, but like we say if we get invited, we always say yes, no, also for the projects. Like Autonome Schule invites us for this cafe. Because of this COVID problem, the cafe is too small. So we just go to the backyard and build something. So that's why we also get invited in Zurich to make some things.
Yeah, and I would like to add that what Nadine mentioned, that we all live in Zurich, I guess this is really an important thing, that somehow we believe that or we would like to change something at the place we are living. So I guess this is the main reason why most of our work is in Zurich, because we have a strong belief that if we are active in the city, you can really change something which is then also visible directly. Yeah.
No, it's better because people who are listening to us will not hear you.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So thanks a lot for the presentation. My question is related to pushback. Have you experienced any pushback from institutions, from people, from sort of like any resistance from anybody, or I would say especially what is interesting, maybe institutions?
I wouldn't call it resistance, but quite often also with. Sometimes we also get asked if we are in touch with authorities to give advices, because we have much more knowledge about the everyday life, and sometimes there is a superficial interest, and then we realize it's for a lot of people it's a bit too much, or if it takes too much energy. So I wouldn't say a pushback. I think also in the Swiss mentality you wouldn't get this so quickly, but is a more like maybe sometimes we realize that okay, we thought there we have a step in, but then we don't really get in. Like working with authorities is one example. And but we also have to confess that we move a lot in our bubble, which is always also an effort. We have to remind ourselves to get out of this. So we had then also, I remember a situation, a Swiss bank asked us if we want to join a program to encourage maybe young refugees in their working career. And first of all, we are always a bit like, oh, shall we do this? And then we say, no, obviously we have to do this. And then often in the second steps, also such projects fails because we realize there is such a big gap, what they expect or what we think how you should start such a project, that there's still a lot of barriers we have also to get through, also to work on ourselves,
For me, it's a really nice pushback from the people, because we are so open, everybody can come, and the refugees are so happy to just to build something with us, because they are welcome. Everybody can come, and they feel they are welcome, and we have just, even if it's work, we have happiness together, because that's inclusion. And just to do it together and smiling faces, that's a really nice pushback for me from the people who are involved and welcome.
Thanks for the presentation. I would like to know, how do you finance these projects? Do you have any federal state aids? How do you finance this project?
Maybe you can clarify a bit. You mean the whole association, all of the projects?
Yes.
So as you probably realize, that most of the projects we are doing are, as a first thing, collaborations. So we don't usually start projects ourselves. And as a second thing, also invitations. So we got asked if we would like to be part of some project, and then normally we discuss at the Stammtisch if we are motivated to do so. And I would say that the normal or the best case is that the projects are then like financed from the organization or the association which is inviting us. But of course, there are also other cases. For example, also the projects for Autonome Schule. These are projects which we also somehow act as like we offer something like I don't know the English word, like a Dienstleistung, like a service. Yeah, exactly. There is the financing, I would say, a bit different, but we also profit from reuse of things. So, for example, this pavilion you can see on the screen here. This is now we built it up the 4th time. So we also have a storage. We use the same material. We also connect the projects, and I would say this also. There's also benefit in a financial way.
But the biggest part, I think, is the human power and the time you spend, and we do it for free because all of us think it's important to do it. So just make it for free and try to make a change.
So thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to know, I don't know if I just didn't understand it or if you said it, so sorry if it's not a real question. But the refugees, are there some refugees part of the association, like really part, or is it just like in your workshops they can come and they're free and you welcome them, or are they like in the Stammtisch, sorry, the thing at the end we were talking about? Yes, are they part of the decisions of the association, or are they just welcome and free to participate?
So architecture for refugees is mainly like a whole community, and this community has around 100 people, and those people are people with refugee background, with migration background, but also people from Switzerland. And like at Stammtisch, for example, there like the decisions are made. Like we have different offers where we can build something, for example, and then we get together at Stammtisch and make the decision. And everyone who's there takes part in the decision and has the right to vote. So all the people that come there can vote. And that is why like everyone is free to participate also in the association in doing the stuff like organizing it. But of course, everyone is also free to join. And for example, as we pointed out with our evaluation of the Stammtisch, often people with refugee background are not so interested in discussing so much and organizing so much. But for this, like, we're open to everyone and it's free for everyone. And so it's possible to say, okay, there's a highest rate of people with multicultural background coming to the building events when you really can do something hands-on and be practical at work. But it's open and free to everyone.
Yeah, it's true. I saw a refugee and he asked me, when you build something again? And long time, some weeks we did not build something. I want to say, I forget it. Yeah, we are open for everybody. It doesn't cost something, just some time, your time. So you are now here in the same room. That means you are almost member. when you come the next time in the room we are, then it goes further and further.
I think there's also a project we didn't show today. We had about 3 years ago, we had a series of creative workshops where was called Arts in Transition, where we really focused on that the workshop leader are people with a refugee background, because this is also sometimes a bit difficult to encourage them that they can teach a lot, and they often come with quite specific skills which are really nice for people to learn from them. And these were moments that we really had to push this, to push them, yeah, now you're responsible also for the organization. And because, yeah, often they just say, yeah, you can do it better, I'm come and I'm happy to help. So it's from both sides, it's a bit, it can be difficult that we had a strategy time where we also worked on our inner structure, and there we also, Karim took part sometimes, but it was also, I think sometimes also for them it's also a bit boring for this more theoretical part, but I think, for this more hands-on project, it's working, they take responsibility also because we are mainly academics. Also, a lot of them, they also know often how to build it in a better way. They have much more skills than us. This is another thing we often realize,
Thank you for presenting. I just want to ask, in sort of the grander picture of what the refugee experience is, I don't understand, firstly, what is the context in terms of phases of ability to be mobile and active in the Swiss community for a new refugee, for example. So let's say, imagine that they come and you showed an example of a building in Zurich where they have very restricted activity. So let's maybe consider that like the cocoon stage or whatever. They arrive, but they're very limited what they can do and where they can go. Is that true? I don't understand the Swiss government, how it's regulating that. But my point is that it's interesting to see at different chapters in the evolution of an arrival of a refugee, and then you refer to people with refugee background being very included in many of your activities, which is great. So my point is that I'm trying to figure out how one gets from those baby steps of a refugee who arrives in Switzerland and is waiting to discover what qualification to move forward and find a job, or legal status for, like you said, for example, they're restricted in learning language in the early stages. That's obviously very restrictive. So at what point do they get liberated from that in their processing in Switzerland, then that they can become involved in some of these events that you're doing, in these activities, and start activating their life and taking advantage of what you're offering? I'm not understanding how they get from point A to point B. Is that clear, what I'm asking? I just don't understand how it works in Switzerland, that when you arrive as a refugee in that building that's not very lovely,
I think
how do you get to the point where you come to one of your events and actually can cook and work together? And so, because then there's many activities, there must be a door that opens at one point that's very, very critical, where that person gets more freedom to try to improve their life and to try to make a difference and get involved and included and take advantage of all your opening doors. For example, one thing that comes to mind, obviously you're doing good events with food, and this is a great central thing to do. This was my profession for 30 years. I understand it very well, and it's really good for people to do when they're recovering confidence in their life, or whether it's people coming out of prison. There are many different ways that cooking is a great way to renew your life. My point is that you could use, is it legal to use, for example, or would it be considered inappropriate to use refugees to try to give them a chance to do something, to go to farms and do gleaning activity at the end of harvest on different agricultural products that become meals that they can then bring and work together and make a dinner out of, or no, but if that's illegal for somebody, or it's considered taking advantage of somebody in some people's eyes or whatever, to me it would be fun if I was going to a new country and someone said, do you want to go to a farm and we're going to go get all the tomatoes before they get rotten, and we're going to make, you know, tomato soup and have a big party. I would go, okay, I'm going. You know, I want to do something. I want to be in a community. I want to get out of this building. So is that legal to do? I mean, how can you open the door?
Yeah, I think this answer is
Where does the door open?
much more complex. I think we have to answer this together, because we also have different knowledge of this. First of all, you have different permissions in Switzerland from this waiting position where you almost can't do anything to an acknowledged refugee, where you're able to have a little bit of possibilities. But I think the answer is much more complex, because there's also a matter of resilience. I mean, a lot of them have crazy stories, and you find these people who made them even stronger. They're super motivated. Other people, they have to cope with their psychological problems for a long time. Then they don't have the energy for, I want to meet new friends. They have other issues first. And then if this first arrival in the Federal Asylum Center is really tough, because this is also what Anna said before, or Margarita, the timing when we have a meeting. The inhabitants of this, they have to be back in their centers in the early evenings. It's there are some, you can say, prison regulation who doesn't really.
When does that stop for that person?
So I think maybe Anna, she did even in her studies a project. Maybe you have a more official.
Is it years? Is it weeks? Is it months? The person just is stuck in that building for months and years?
It depends. Huh?
I'm not that well prepared anymore about the exact days, but it's around 3 months that they stay in the Federal State Center, and afterwards they moved forward. Forward to the so-called Durchgangszentrum, to a transition center where they stay for several time, and then they get to another community where they stay. And this process can last around, as I remember right, 140 days, but it can even go longer if it takes longer to check all the documents and everything. So it can be up to too many years that they're staying, but they have different stages, and they, in the end, are staying in the community and staying there for a longer time. So those federal state centers is the very first step, where they're just for a certain time. And for this, we're trying to take the chance, as we also have in our community people that really in touch with those people from the federal center, to get in touch with them via cooking. And for this federal state,
at that stage, the way that you can help them to feel included in Zurich is to go there to visit them there.
yes. So
All you can do. They can't go out. Then the second stage, you can go there, but they can slowly get out to a certain extent. So those are sort of phases where you can invite them out into Zurich, into some of these activities. And they can say, oh, great, I get to get out of here and do something. And then that's an opening for them that you're creating.
yeah, it's a bit so but maybe it's not that we have different steps. It's a bit more like we have different projects that we follow with this, as for example like the cooking together, but as well like having those city tours where we ask them, hey, can you tell us how you develop the city? Because of course they're going around, they're in the new city, and they have like their spaces where they stay, and maybe we don't know them. So we're trying to have like this exchange and to learn from each other. And I would not say that there is like a certain sequence of projects how we try to get them more included in the society. It's a bit more like having different programs, and they can freely decide, okay, whether they want to take part or not. And they're always super welcome, but it's not that we have a certain program to integrate them. It's like, free on them.
I want to explain shortly our name. Architecture for refugees means everybody should have a good architecture. And it's like this, like Anne explained. First you come to this federal asylum center, and there is a very high security. Every day you get controlled, you sleep with other people in the room you don't know, but there is a high security, but you don't have any privacy. So it's not so easy, you know. Then I know another one, after this process was 140 days or something, so that's regulated. But then after this process you get seven different possibilities, no? On Bewilligung, NF, I don't know, it's a little bit complex. And then you get to another asylum center, and there is no more security. And there are also people you don't know, and sometimes really big problems and really stress. So it's not so easy, no? First you get high security, no privacy, and then you're just in a house with other people you don't know, and they can be problems. And what you have, you don't have any possibilities. And that's a real, it's not a good welcome. And we just make projects to involve the people, and that's why we get also smile and happiness. And we thought we do it for them, but then Wednesday is not here, but we talk about, we say, it's not only for the refugees, it's also good for us, because you can learn so much in this process. And that's about inclusivity. Just do it together and you will learn a lot what it means. And you don't have to be afraid of, so they are not, the most people are friendly and just want to do something together. That's so nice, and that's what we do.
And maybe also in addition, like architecture for refugees doesn't especially mean buildings or asylum centers. It's a bit more that we understand this architecture as a space and also as a social space. And this space we can create with festivals doing together, with eating together, cooking together, or with building up like a sculpture and having there like this social space, staying together and having an exchange.
Yeah, the one thing is architecture, the space, and the other thing is what you do in this space. And that's the action we take.
Yeah, and I would like to add that I mean, Switzerland has a very restrictive asylum procedure, and we should also not maybe talk too much about this. I think what we are trying is to, I mean, we did one project in this Federal Asylum Center. Ivo showed it, this cooking together. And I mean, this was the first thing we did there. It was new, this legal thing, and also the building. And we also know the architects who did it. And it was very, there was a great discussion whether it's a prison or it's at least inside the city center. And yeah, so we just wanted to try it out, but I think we also, for us it was a bit less sustainable, because if you are doing this project there, like if you imagine for like 1 or 2 years, the people are like changing every 3 months, because they just get through this procedure. And what we are doing is somehow much more sustainable. Like we are trying to establish a community which is resilient, which comes together regularly, which helps each other, and which also gets to know each other, and which creates a room which is somehow radical inclusive, that we try that everyone has more or less the same right. So, and I think this is, I mean, the people there in this process, they really have other problems, and then maybe they don't want to cook, or they don't want to build a ship, because they need legal advice, or they are they have psychological problems or, yeah.
Yeah, this federal asylum center, the architect told us, is the responsible is a high military, and he wants like a military base with high security. But the city of Zurich made it possible to have a room by side, means half öffentlich, what is half open, so kind of, it's open, but not open. Yeah, you have to be, if you want to do something, you can do something in this room with the refugees. But what we did is just to open for everybody and to invite the people who work in this neighborhood or who live in this neighborhood. The address we have, we write to them and invite them for free. And the refugees are already in the asylum center, so they just go out of the asylum center because this room is by side, outside. And they're very happy to eat something like this, because in the canteen now I think they change a little, but it's just there are Muslim or also just if you have a culture, you used to eat certain things, and then you have to eat other things, you don't like it too much, so they were very happy that something cooked what they know, and so I see so much happiness. That's really good.
I think we already over talked, and it's really nice to see all these questions coming. I just take 1 minute because there is one thing that I also wanted to know about the second part of your presentation about the spider diagram. I was really wondering because I think you also mentioned this problem of staying in the bubble, and I saw that you used this diagram to analyze projects that are already oriented towards refugees and asylum seekers, and I'm wondering if this is the right approach to criticize within the already activist community and not rather look at very exclusive, closed structures and institutions, and maybe even think of the spider diagram as a sort of audit that one could, or as a counseling activity that your organization could offer to institutions such as ours. For example, you could come to CCS and analyze how inclusive or not our offers are, and then we could have the signate if we are or not. I don't know, I'm just imagining this in order to go there where it hurts and where it really would have quite a big effect, I think.
Thank you very much for this nice input. And that's quite a good idea. For us, it's first just important how to figure out that we kind of give this voice or this possibility of evaluating also to people with refugee background, as we're trying to focus a bit also on this aspect. And for this, we have to figure something out. Then always like to have a community that really wants to evaluate on this. And maybe that will take a bit more time also to develop a bit more the methodology cafe and to find out about this.
I have also questions. There are still some cards. Can I have it back?
They're here. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing all your research, all your actions. Thank you for your very interactive participation. And I wish you all a very nice evening, and we can also continue the discussion around the glass outside in the accueil. Thank you.
Thank you very much.